Welcome back to the continuing conversation on DDwithMaqC. This time we've hosted Lucy Nyambura Mwigai, who is the CEO of B-Lab Africa. But we haven't even gotten to that part because there's some very fascinating background that we are learning about from Buruburu in Kenya all the way to Strath University here, and then to Australia, where she has lived 9 years. But I do want to segue into something different. Every time, and we will ask you this at the end, but every time we have a guest here, we often ask them to ask the next guest a question that they feel should be answered. So I know this is unprepared. Okay. Are you ready?
Ask the question.
Drums roll. No, I will come to that. I'm just planting that seed to you.
Okay, all right. Get me comfortable and then, throw it in.
We will ask it towards the end. What makes your decision to leave Australia hard? I mean, it sounds like, you know, good friendships, great relationships, a great learning experience, the efficiency, the economy is working, you are getting an opportunity every so often to come back home. So you sort of live in almost a whole decade there, and it's a decade of, you know, your years of experimentation. That's what I call the 20s.
Yeah.
What are the thoughts that you're having when you say, now I need to go back? Or is it that you're being called back? Or have you found the love of your life and you want to return home with him? Like, what is it?
Yeah, 20s, yes, is what you said, is that decade of experiment. Actually, I spent all my 20s in Australia, because I came back, I think when I was 29 or 28 there. So I'd spent my 20s there, and I loved it. I think I loved the fact that it really opened up my mind. As an economy, again, as I said, if you work hard, you have a good degree, education, you get a good job that pays you well, that allows you to do travel. To be quite honest, I think I did a lot of travel during those 20s, and maybe that's why I missed it so much.
Within and without Australia.
Within and without Australia, right? I was privileged enough to do that, make some good friends, you're able to buy all this stuff that sometimes you look at in Kenya, I'm like, I mean, you convert in Kenya shilling, but then it's so affordable because, again, as I said, so there were all these things that were working.
What was the Australian dollar to Kenya shillings exchange rate at the time?
Gosh, you know, there was a time, I don't even know, but I remember there was a time I'd actually done a visit of the US to Australia at that time, and the Aussie dollar was stronger than the US. Like, the economy was so strong because of the mining boom. So I can't remember exactly what it, right now I think it's, I don't know now, because the exchange rate has been fluctuating. I'd say right now we are maybe 90 Kenya shillings to the dollar, but then it was very strong as well. But so that means, you see, now when you're going to an economy like that, I can afford anything literally.
True.
Right? Obviously within what I'm being paid and all that.
You can afford life and a few luxuries.
And a few luxuries. That's true. And I was single. I didn't have any kids. You see, that's also, you have to remember that, right? There are because there's no, I mean, I've always been very prudent with my money. I was doing my savings here, you know, just thinking about the future. I've always been a planner, as I mentioned, but you still were able to do that, the travels and all that. So honestly, life was good. And every time anyone ever asks me about my life in Australia, I always say it was really good. I have nothing to complain about, right? Like, it really worked for me. But I think, so now 2013 is when I was finishing my master's. So again, as I said, I did my undergrad, then I became a CA, and then I started my Master of Finance 2012. It took 18 months. It was an 18-month program, Master of Finance. I finished around mid 2013, June or July, and then that's when I was like, okay, And I'd worked by then for 5.5 years in Australia.
Were you working when you're doing your master's?
Yes, I was working as I was doing my master's. And I think at that point is where I started thinking, okay, so what's next? What is my plan? I mean, I've done what brought me to Australia at a minimum. It was education and a bit of work experience. So I've done that. So now I have two options. It's either I'm relocating or I'm buying a home here, getting a mortgage, and just deciding I'm settling. Like, those are now where I am. Those are my two decisions. And I just felt pulled that, you know what, let me try home. Let me try home. But my dad and mom were like, you only come back if you've gotten a job. You have to start looking for a job. Well, yeah, they had no issue with me coming. I mean, I've done what I need to do. I mean, and if it doesn't work out, you can go back. I mean, by then I'd already established, you know, been there long enough to for them to see that I am a moral citizen who can give back to
a responsible adult.
Responsible adult, you know, Australia. So, and, you know, if it doesn't work out, you can always go back to Australia. So for me, that's when I started looking for a job. And I was like, because I don't want to buy, or I really don't want to settle yet until I try Kenya. I really just wanted to try it out because I knew the option of coming back to Australia was there. Let me try it. Let me see how it is, right? But I've been told I can't go without a job. So I started looking for a job when I was in Australia. And it was really hard. And I actually didn't tell a lot of people my decision. My decision, actually, I just kept it to my parents. I think my siblings knew about it as well. And the reason is, obviously, people will be like, hey, why are you going back? Things are working out. Why? You know how Kenya is. So I just thought, you know what, so that I am not swayed. Yeah? And it's my decision. I'll only tell people when I've made the decision. Like, guys, I found this and I'm going. And actually, that's what I did. So I graduated in July. And then I just started looking online. I mean, and I was in 2013. So right now, 11 years later, it's very different. I actually think now we are a global village. Then it wasn't there yet. So looking for a job was really hard as well, right? But I've been told I can't go until I have something. So I started looking, and I remember my dad saw this job on a newspaper article. Those days, jobs. I was like, yeah, I think this could be a good place to start. Because for their thought process is just a place for you to start. And then you see, when you're here, you're able to look for what you want.
For more.
Yeah, for more. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. So I applied for the job. I did those interviews online. I got a job. And December, and I remember I landed in Kenya December 12th, 2023. No, 2013, sorry. Is when I now relocated back home officially. Now that's when I landed.
You and everything.
I had, sorry?
Just you and everything you need to come back with.
Everything else was shipped. I just shipped it. It took 6 weeks to come. But everything that I needed is when I now, and then I think I told my friends like a month before, I'm like, yeah, guys, it's a wrap. It's a wrap for now, may or may not come back. But now when I go back, you will not see me in January, because normally I was used to going back, you know, after 3-4 weeks. Yeah, so I came back.
What was that entry point for you? Was it a job in a particular sector? Had you already begun thinking about environmental sustainability governance?
I actually was still working in accounting and finance. So I got a job, and I said I was in energy in Australia. I'd worked there for 6 years. So when I came back working for now a company that offered hospitality services for energy companies, the tallow oils, as they were there in Turkana, right? And I worked there for a year, right? So that was my entry point. That was my entry point to Kenya. So I just shipped my things December 12th. Then in January, started working now in Kenya
and absorbing the new shocks.
And now I had been living by myself. Okay, let me say not living by myself, but with my friends.
While in Aussie.
When in Aussie, right? So now I come back and I come back to living at home with my parents. And the plan was to stay, I'll be honest, by then the plan was to stay, you know, because I was so used to my independence. I was like, I don't know if they are used, and I'd been away for 9 years. So there was that, will they understand that, you know, I'm now older and
you're not the teenager
that left. So I was there saying, you know, guys, 3 months max, I'm looking for my place. Guys, I stayed there for 2 years until I got married.
Wow. As is the dream of every parent for their daughter, that you will live here when you're going to. Oh dear.
Yeah, so I ended up staying there for the 2 years.
And how was it?
Imagine, it was so different. It was so good, I think.
Were you the only child at home?
By then, yes.
So they needed you as well. I mean, it's.
Yes, I was the only, because my brother was still in Australia. My elder sister still is in Melbourne, in Australia, and my other sister. So then there was a lot of things happening in my family, actually, because my second-born sister was actually, interestingly, she was diagnosed with cancer. So 2015. So a couple of years later, she passed on. So I also think it worked out well, because it's like when I came in is when we came to find out about her illness. And obviously now there was a lot of visits to India then with my mom. And by the way, I really respect her, because then is where she actually put the needs of the family first, because she was actually doing a PhD, but she stopped, put that on pause, and for like 2-3 years she went back to just looking after my sister, and just, you know, making sure, again, as I said, there were a lot of hospital visits between that time, and that's the time I also came home. So I think it worked well from just that position of being home when we were going through this, being an extra support as well. So it sometimes things happen. It's so weird how when you look back and you're like, it happened like at this very coincidental, that when I was planning to come back home is when we found out about this, and we be able to support my parents. We are at a good place now, I thank God. But yeah, there was so much happening then. But the plan, even with that, the plan was to stay home for only 3 months. But I think they understood now I'm older. I mean, there were those luxuries I had missed. As much as I loved Aussie, there's an element of coming home and you're getting a cooked meal.
That's true.
Right? And just conversing with my parents, because I hadn't done that for like good 9 years. So even if I come home at 7 or something, and then we just sit down, have a good chat for 30 minutes, and I go do my thing, I liked it. It's so interesting the way I changed my mind. Yeah, but it helped me save quite a bit as well.
But we only connect the dots backwards. Yeah, so you're now able to see with hindsight that you know, that moment was important.
It was important for the season of life that was taking place, even at a personal, personally for my family.
And so you work for 1 year in this?
Yes, I worked for 1 year there.
Yeah. Any highlights?
There, I think the highlight was now, I mean, I'm working in Kenya. Jeez, and let me tell you, it was such a culture shift, right? It was and it was a culture shift from, I've lived abroad, there are things I'm used to, things working, like even just not from a work perspective, and now I'm working in Kenya. Then I was working for a really big organization, a multinational. Now I was working for a regional organization as well, so it's smaller. And I think also I wasn't used to traffic, because now the company used to be based on Ngong Road. I was driving from Thome.
Oh wow!
Right?
Yeah.
So there's that.
Oh, that commute daily.
That commute. That's why I'm telling you, the fact that I lasted for 2 years.
No, but you did that job for 1 year.
I did 1 year, and the truth is, after the 1 year, there was a downturn in energy, and I don't know if you guys can remember. There's a time like prices just went down, right? And now that means there was no business, and I was actually laid off.
Oh.
Yes.
So they just said, we don't need this, we don't require this position anymore, or,
Yeah, I
or we
remember.
cannot afford it?
I remember. So what had happened was, so I think in December
Of 2020,
of 2014. Yeah, no, yeah, 2014. So now I'm just getting into the office. Yeah, we are all called. Oh, so there's an announcement, etc., etc. So we are all called in the office. I've never gone through a layoff. And the fact that I can speak about it now, I'm at a really good place in my life. Yeah, so they just called us. I'm given a letter, and what they tell me is they can't afford my role anymore at what they're paying me, but they can give me a different role.
With a pay cut?
Yes, with a pay cut. So they give me that, and they tell me you can go home and think about it. They've given us 3 months pay, and what else? At this point in my life, I was like, no. In hindsight, maybe I would have done so. I was like, no, it's never that.
The alternate role, was it away from your comfort?
The truth is, Maxi, and maybe it's just me at that age, I didn't even find out about
Oh, you didn't find out about
I didn't find out.
Okay.
I was like, guys, if you want me to leave, I'll leave, but I'm not taking a pay cut. And I walked out. And guys, I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. And that's why I'm saying it's my journey, so I'll just say it as it. In hindsight, maybe I would have done something different. I mean, then I was still single, guys. Right? When I say single, I didn't have kids, right? So maybe my decision would be very different if I had a family to feed, and also maybe it's also because of I had just relocated back. Remember, it's been a year, and this year is one of those. I was still living in a high. I'm living at home. You know, in Aussie, I used to pay bills. I used to do all that stuff. Then now you've relocated and you're still trying to get your bearing. And I just said, no, it's not what I want. I don't want a lower, I don't want a junior role, because it would mean just a junior role and a pay cut. Like,
in accounting though, or in something different?
Yeah, by then now I was doing business analysis.
Okay.
So when I left Australia, I was in now analysis. I moved now to analysis, not hardcore accounting. So the first 5 years of my career, I did accounting, right? Just being in the accounting department, different roles. Then I moved now to business analysis, right? So even the role that brought me here was now a senior business analyst. So a slightly
what does, for my sake and the sake of audiences, in such a case, I do have a question about the living, but I also have a question about what does a business analyst do? Okay,
so what I was doing, let me start with what I was doing in Australia, but really it's to look at analyzing the business. You see, accounting, we'd close the books, post journals, send out invoices, and do analysis based out of that. Really,
of
that's
that
the
process, finance process.
Yes, so really it was just, for me mainly was, in the various roles I did, was really looking at accounting from a revenue perspective, we had a lot of joint ventures, right? Because now in the energy, some of those costs are so high, so it's easier to partner with. Yes, so a lot of joint venture accounting as well, but really it was more of that, posting journals, data. I don't want to say key data entry, but really more on the invoicing, the accounting reconciliations. Now when we move to analysis, here we were looking at how is the business performing on a month-to-month basis, right? And we'd actually have meetings, monthly meetings with all the departments that are in the organization to discuss their books. Like, this is what you did last month, this is what you did. Why is there such a big variance? Are we seeing anything that would make it
something worrisome?
Yes. Yeah, so let's get to know that. So we'd actually be part of the budgeting process. And again, realize this is a multinational, so that means there are more people, meaning work is more segmented.
What are the volumes like you're looking at in terms of money for such a multinational?
Then I remember I used to invoice like one invoice, and I used to send out like 4 or 5 invoices like that, like $100 million. We've just sold natural gas to somewhere in Asia. So that's 100 million and another 100. So maybe 5 of those in a month. And that's just me, because there are other different
analysts.
Yes, analysts and accountants doing various work. Yeah.
So invoicing separately.
Yeah. So that we're looking at maybe now as a multi, it would be billions of dollars easily. Globally.
Globally.
Yeah.
And now when you come, in this case, that's not the same
yeah,
volume.
it's not the same volume when I even come to Kenya, but it's really analyzing the business. Where can we reduce our costs? Where can we increase? So the whole idea, when I was there in Australia, we were in charge of budgeting. So us would do the budgeting. Right. We are doing the analysis of all the departments and how you're going with what you told us you're going to do. Like we were their business partner. I don't know how else to put it. The financial business partner for all these departments, the engineers, health and safety, such things. You're like their financial business partner to help them make better financial decisions, right? And do we have the money to buy this really expensive equipment that is needed? Or do we need to even budget for that? All that. So let me put it like that. Financial business partner for all other businesses.
Using data to make decisions.
Make decisions. And also now do also what we call
projections.
Yes, long-term planning, strategic planning, long-term budgeting and all that.
And I go back again to Australia because of that, any example you can give of where your analysis helped something very particular? Maybe a decision was going in one way, but you helped analyze and you helped support them to steer the direction of some maybe purchases or hiring or just to make it very practical.
That's a good idea. I had that role for a year as well.
Or the last year before you left.
The last year before I left. So I had that role for 1 year. And I remember the one thing that we used to do a lot is because the purchases we make are so high, big, right? So now the financial business partners would come in on a month-to-month basis, and I'm like, okay, so these are your actuals and these are the projections. Because the reason why we used to do this, and we used to be a team of like 3 or 4, is because, again, as we said, a lot of, and not in a bad way, because you're looking at it from an engineering perspective. You're not seeing the whole...
The big picture.
The big picture. So we need to make sure that you understand that the decision that you say you're not hiring, we're not buying this now, then where do we need to, where do we need to budget for that, right? Later. And the beauty is, one of the things I can say, and you see, when you are in a bigger organization, and because of the fact that it had been around for the longest time, I forget how many years, there's only so much, if captured early, right? Because the challenge here is not really, I would say, the finances. It's just a matter of, do we have the cash flow, right? Do we have these guys paid us? See that I'm telling you, I'm invoicing this millions of dollars, but the money also has to be spent elsewhere, or do we need to get, because we used to be a subsidiary of a US company, do we need to borrow? So you see, that's the whole idea. I can't remember a specific one, but the reason why we did all that is just looking at the intricacies of how each business is so interconnected, right? If that makes sense, right? And believe it or not, even how we used to calculate bonuses, which I thought it was so intricate and I never understood how they did it, but they'd look at such decisions as well. Like one of the ones that used to impress me a lot was health and safety was such a big thing, right? So you would go like months, like I remember there was a time we were celebrating like 3 years of no incident. And you see that also comes to calculate. And an incident can be a paper cut, by the way.
True.
Yeah.
Or fracture of the leg.
So all that data, but it also came to like, it calculates the bonus for
the
business unit.
Yeah.
With a business unit, and it says whether you're going to get a big bonus or not,
as a unit.
As a unit.
That's interesting.
Right. But it really, I think it's what you're saying, the power of data. And sometimes I think, and maybe that's why a business course or a financial management is so important.
It's one of the most important things. It's like driving.
Yes.
For anyone who is worth just being, like in an organization or growing into, I think that foundation is very important, just to be able to understand and the books and the numbers.
That's what we are trying to do with now our technical team.
All right.
It's all of them are technical, right? Even us, we're technical, but the engineers, I mean, they're the ones, I say the heartbeat. In terms of the organization being there, is because they are there. They're the ones who are maybe doing the drilling and all that, whatever. But you see, you also need to understand what are the effects of your decision from a financial perspective, and that's why I call them. I said we were their financial business partners.
Yeah. Is it a role that you feel is appreciated by entrepreneurs and leaders, and even by colleagues, for instance, especially by technical people? Because the finance team, the business analysis team, is usually not the largest in an organization. You're probably just a few people.
Because even us, we were very few.
As compared to the
how big we were.
Hundreds, perhaps, of other staff members. As a partner, for where you're a partner to them, did they really appreciate the value of, sitting with you and listening to, this is the data you're giving us, this is the kind of impact it has for now and the future? Or is there resistance?
I mean, there was never any resistance, but one of the things I know is, it also depends on how we put KPIs for
you package them.
How you package also KPIs for some of these technical roles, in terms of, what you want to, maybe your KPI is there's a performance one in terms of, because sometimes you don't want to look at it being a cost center, but it is a cost center, and you want to make sure your cost center or profit center, whichever way you want to have look at it. Is making sense, right? Maybe that is what you as a leader, the engineering team leader, you're being, So it because that is now a KPI for you, then you have to make sure it makes sense. How do I make sure that my costs are not going over? But the thing also is, you also don't want to make sure you're underspending. Where is that balance? Because if you're underspending, no work is happening. There's a reason why you budgeted for whatever you budgeted. So there's a balance that I believe a business needs to do, where and you want to make sure, and that's why you must look at also data and say, are you doing a good job in terms of budgeting, right? Because a budget as well is supposed to be a guideline. Life happens and things change, right? But the whole idea is, as much as possible, you want to be within your budget. And that's why I said you don't want to overspend, right? But you also don't want to underspend, because to me, underspending is like all the initiatives that you said you're going to do that would help you make money are not taking place. So what are you guys doing, right? So I do think it's important, but I also believe it's how it has been structured by an organization. And based out of that, then you as a lead will see whether this...
How to derive value from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
In anything, I think it's a matter of, it will add up to my bottom line.
So you're at this stage now, as you call it, you've been fired.
Yes.
Well, your decision at the time, you're making that based on how, you know, the value you feel you're bringing to the organization. Taking a junior role would then also probably, you know, bring you steps lower, which then climbing back up could be a challenge. But you're also not having as much expenses as you would have. But there is no other job that is there or was there. Why had you been looking? Had you seen the signs and signals?
So yeah, I think there's a lot that, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe in hindsight, I would have, if all those things were, but that decision was the decision I made then as a 29-year-old. But I think there were so many things that were taking place there. I think there was a humility that also needed to, I needed to have, you know, because for the longest time I'd been in an economy that is working. I had a job that was paying me, I must admit, relatively well. And now, a year later, you're telling me that I'm being fired and you want to give me another pay cut, right? And even by the time I was relocating back, I'd already taken, like, how I'd done it was, I knew I didn't get like the same salo. You get what I mean? It wasn't like
you had to settle for less.
I had to settle for less, but it was enough for me to make me want to move. It wasn't bad, yeah, but it was like, so in my mind I'm like, I've already done that beginning of the year. No, you want to tell me to go back? Yeah, I think I was just, there was a lot going on. And at that point, I had already been engaged. So I came to Kenya, and that's when I met the love of my life.
He was waiting all these years.
And and I had gotten engaged then in October. No, September actually.
That was a quick one though. Like you started dating that year, he engaged in October.
Yes. Actually, September. I shouldn't be getting
People know what they want in life. That's an example.
Can't be mixing dates here. Yeah. So I'd been engaged September, and now, yes, I was jobless already.
Was that December. A factor when you were like, did that cross your mind? Like, I'm now engaged. I'd probably be like, just checking. Did that play a factor whatsoever in your decision of, or at least in your thought process for saying, I'm okay to not be with a job?
No, I was still living at home. It didn't, but it actually, where it played a factor was me deciding to stay in Kenya. Because at that point,
you had been told earlier that you can always go back to Australia.
So now, at that point, in fact, me being engaged was what kept me here. Because I was ready to pack up and leave. I was like, yeah, I've done my 1 year, tried it out. I can always come back for holidays. But I'd already gotten engaged, and I think, so me deciding not to take that role had nothing to do with all that decision at all. Because I was still living at my folks' place. We got engaged that year, but we got married December 2015. Yeah, I hadn't thought that far. I hadn't. For me, it was a pride thing. It really was a pride thing, right? Why are things not working out the way
they should have?
Right? I think that was what was really playing in my mind.
You call it a pride thing, and I wonder, where the pride is, in the sense, like, pride is something good. This is, I have this privilege, and I'm grateful for it. I will not use it to undermine others, but because I have a privilege, I can lift me to a particular level and help lift others. And I'm okay with it. I don't take anything short, because then it's not just about me, it's about others. I ask that because also being in privilege is not necessarily a choice you make. Yeah, it's you, life has given you certain things.
Yeah.
I'm asking that also because if I look at my child, I would be like, yeah, that's not a bad decision to make. In any case, it's all right if you make that decision and you choose you. You know, choose you, because you understand that I should be worth more. And I guess, as you're saying, even for your children, you want them to be at a place, if you have to make a choice, you're not making a choice to over-sacrifice. And it's not proud to, it's not negatively proud to say, no, I thank you for that, but no thanks. I'm just wondering.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it, and I should look at it like that, because I really struggle. You know, again, I am big on image. I'm hoping that's changing. But I'm big on image, and I think telling people that I was laid off was so hard. Was so hard. And that's what I'm saying, if I can say it on air, I'm at a good place now.
Really, then, as you're saying, grown. Eh?
Yes, I've really grown. And I guess I've come to learn that life just throws at you curveballs. Random things can happen, and that doesn't mean it's anything it's just life, right? Yeah, so for me, I just made that decision. At that point, I remember I was going for a trip to Cape Town. I'd paid for one with a friend of mine, and I just said, now I've been let go. Let me go for my 1 week holiday trip, and then we'll figure out what will happen.
Oh, that's nice. That's a good pride.
I was like, no, but that one I had booked
it's already paid.
It had been paid. Now what do you do?
Yeah.
Are you not going to go? Because, you know. So
and it's good for therapy. Like
I don't know if it helped with therapy.
No?
I think it did, actually, because I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Cape Town is beautiful.
Yeah.
Very,
so
very.
I did a 1 week Cape Town, then I came back. I came back now home. By then, I'd already informed my parents, and our parents. I mean, in Kenya without a job, yeah. I mean, and I don't blame them, because I mean, you know how Kenya is, right? It's really hard. It really is hard to get a job, and that's why I remember I have mentioned that even when I was coming back to Kenya, I was told, get a job and come. Now I'm quitting, and you know, yeah. So it was one of those, but like, it's okay, now you've made your decision. You're a grown person. There's only so much you can do.
How long was between that now and the next thing?
Maybe 2 months.
Oh, 2 months. Okay, let me pause there. Move back. This man that has engaged you,
Yeah.
who is he and how did you guys meet?
So we met through a mutual friend of mine from high school, actually. Right? So high school came with some good things, yeah. So I'd come home, and I'd been coming every year, as I'd said. So I'd been reconnecting with friends. So I was just chatting up my friends. I was like, you know what? I want to be introduced to a few friends of yours. You know, some serious guys. You know, somebody you would recommend. You know, and she's like, I can't think of someone.
Oh.
Right? Yeah. So we went on a blind date.
Blind date is
like when I say oh yeah, we met, and actually my friend spoke to him, gave me his contacts, and he called me actually immediately, and then we spoke, and then we just
hit it off.
No, we didn't hit it off. We set to meet somewhere. I remember it was Java at Sarit before all this other, but we actually met at the Java at Sarit in 2014, January, if I'm not wrong, of 2014. Yeah.
Just you've newly returned.
I've just newly returned. My friend has just connected me with this guy, and we meet up for a coffee after work. Yeah.
And you connect?
Not immediately. Like it took some time. And when I say some time, I mean, the truth is, there's always this, like, I always thought that, you know, my guy would come with this, I don't know how else to put it. You know, as women, we always have like this
Picture.
Picture and like a checklist that.
Which I hear the checklist keeps going lower and lower.
I don't know that.
As time goes by and by.
I was in my 20s. I think it was still
It
long.
starts with all these things. Eventually, I just want a man.
20. I was still in my 20s. So still
so
long.
the list was long.
Yeah, who knows? Now maybe it would be one or two. Who knows, right?
You're alive.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Yeah. So it was still. And when I say hit it off is because at that point, I think I was still, it's what I'm saying. I had this list. So I'm still trying to check off, does he suit X, Y, Z? Yeah, I know, but I've matured now, audience. Yeah, so, and we just continued chatting. And I believe in March is when he actually officially asked me to be his girlfriend. And it's like, yeah, you know, and now he wants us to date with the hopes of if it works out, we'll get married. Yeah, so it was, and I was like, yeah, let's do
that
this.
That sounds very, you know, very, very proper, you know, in the sense.
He's a proper guy.
It sounds like, you know, like I also know what I want.
Yeah. I mean, he was mature.
Yeah.
He's mature. You know, there's a point where you know what you want, and he knew what he wanted. And even me, I knew what I wanted, right? I didn't want to play games, and he didn't want as well.
At that time of life, you knew you wanted.
Yeah, the next thing,
towards
yes,
marriage.
towards marriage. So I knew that. At that point, I was like, if I'm dating somebody, ideally, I would like it to end there.
Did you have, like, in your checklist, were there like deal breakers?
I'm sure there were. Yeah, there were. For me, I'm very big on values. Our values need to be aligned.
Right.
I think, in fact, that's usually right now, values alignment, right? From a spiritual perspective, what are your requirements of a wife as well? And I think it's just a matter of just looking at, are you a person of integrity? Would you accept my family as we are? You know, I really, for me, I think the biggest one was I just wanted somebody who would accept me for me, right? I mean, we all change, but you're just okay with who I am. You're not trying to come get me and then trying to get somebody else that is different. But I'm very big on values. Everything else, I think, I honestly, I can live without. But values, because you see, even when we get our kids, I mean, there has to be something. There's a roadmap we need to be working with, a set of guidelines. Are we on the same page? Yeah? Yeah. So at least let's be on the same page on those things, right? And
you were?
I'd say for the most part, we were. For the most part, I mean, that's why right now, I think we'll be celebrating. We got married in 2015.
Oh, so you're almost 10.
Almost 10 next year. So, I mean, so far, I'd say...
Congratulations, that's good. What made you stay in that relationship? There is there are checklists and other things, and a proper man has asked you out, but what made you stay?
No, in December.
Yeah, in December. And not stay in Kenya, but stay in this relationship. Is it the values? Is it like, I'm just wondering, there are times, especially when you're dating in the early days.
During the dating phase. Oh, okay.
There are times when you're looking and thinking, oh, should I pause? Should I explore elsewhere? But what about this man made you say, all right, yes to his engagement?
No, and by the way, you've actually said it really well. I also had the same questions, if I'm going to be really honest. Because the truth is, even as you're getting married to somebody, you never know, anything can happen. But again, as I said, because our values were very aligned, and I was like, even when I sit down and I'm looking at the things that I'd said I want and he doesn't have, really, are they deal breakers? Right? If I think about it 5 or 10 years from now, will they even really be important? To be quite honest, some of them won't.
They won't.
Right? And I think at that point in my life, maybe I put so much focus on them, right? Because that is what I know then. But right now when I sit down, I'm like, it wasn't, right? Yeah. And I don't know if it's because you watch all those movies, or I don't know what you're following, what you're seeing from your friends. But I think it also comes with just maturity.
It does.
If nothing else, I think it's just maturity and knowing more and knowing better and just seeing how it's panned out. Because the truth is, even as I was getting married in 2015, and I always say this and people laugh, because you know the vows, you say them, because how our wedding happened is our vows were said first before the service. Not the service before the vows. Like you get in, worship, vows, then the service. And I always tell my friends, I was like, gosh, is that it? Now I'm a wife. Just 5 minutes. You know, the way you say those words, you know.
You had written for your own, or they
nah, I'm not that creative, but yes. But you know what I mean, those words you're told to repeat. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah.
Just with those words.
Just with those words. Honestly, that was what,
legally like, and
yeah, that's what kept on going through my mind. And I'm like, where? But, and you still, and if I'm going to be honest, in my heart, I still don't, I was like, am I making a mistake? Right? You know, I mean, it's for life. And life is long, right? But so far, I must say, it
there isn't an exit clause.
There isn't. Yeah. At least for me, what I believe it's for life, right? And even him, when he was getting in, like, this is it, right? No plan B. Like when you do those, what's this, counseling, and you know you're both aligned. So to me, it was so heavy at that point, and I think that's when I was getting it, right? And I think even that morning of the days when you think about it, you're like, wow, it is actually, when you make that commitment, it's a really heavy commitment. And you know the way they always say that the person you marry, it's one of those key things decision. That it's that actually now steers where your life will go. But I must admit, so far, and it's so funny because I feel like now is when I can confidently say that the decision I made was a good one.
That's so good.
Because you see, those days, honestly, I feel like it's feelings, you're in love, and that's why I think maybe the fact that we are aligned on values, like that was that I knew for a fact that we are aligned on this. Everything else can change, to be very honest. You know, incomes can change. I mean, we've been married for 9 years. People are either moving up, jobs guys can lose jobs.
A pandemic in between that you did not know.
Losing a sister as well, because my sister passed on. I think we got married 2015, 2017. Getting kids, there's so much that can happen that can, you don't know. Like just life happening. So, for me, I honestly think just now I'm more confident of the decision I made than then. I don't know if that even helps anyone.
No, it is remarkable to hear that 10 years into the relationship, marriage and the friendship that you've grown, you can look back and confidently say, this is a good decision. And my grandfather just mentioned something to me before he passed on some years back. He said, you should teach your children that not to fall in love, because it's not anything you can fall for. You can fall into, you can sort of like fall out of. And he emphasized that. He was talking to me in the context of my wife, and he said, you grow in love. You don't fall into it. You know, because the falling is these mushy feelings, which are nice and they are important, but they exit and at times will never return, you know. But do you love this person? Can you sort of make decisions with this person, or decisions for the benefit of this person? And likewise the same, because that's what love is. It's more around action than feeling. And at times during premarital counseling classes, those things are mentioned. I don't know which denomination you got married in, but those things are mentioned. It's in the 10 years that you've lived together that now you start appreciating, you know.
I love that. I wish actually I'd had that when I was getting married, because I was freaking out. I'm like, am I, you really, but I totally agree with what your
feelings inside.
Yeah, I totally agree with your grandfather in that honestly, it's a commitment, right? It's what I loved how he said it. You can fall in, in love and you can fall out of it. And that is so true.
Because you said you will
yeah.
fall out.
I told you, by the way, it's happening.
Yeah,
Just
it is
know.
going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, so I totally agree with him because, and that's why I'm saying for me, it was that commitment, is the fact that he has shown up in those times that were really difficult. Case in point, like my sister passing on, right? He really showed up for me and my family. And you see, I think those are the defining moments, because I think there are moments that, depending on how a couple takes them, it could either bring you closer or break you. Right? It's there's no in between, either in or out. It's just how you two end up maneuvering those seasons in life that will come, right? That will come.
And in your case, as we connect back now to your living this place, he was a factor in the sense you needed to have that conversation with him, because it's not just with home that you are in, but also him. We've started dating earlier that year. At the end of the year, you've been given this choice. How are the conversations about I'm living here? How did he take that?
I can't remember, but I think he was supportive.
He was supportive.
I think he was supportive. But if I'm going to be completely honest, the first few years back in Kenya was so hard for me. Like, coming back and transitioning were really hard. And if I was not married, and I say this because he knows, I would have gone back, right? I think it's because I hadn't mentally prepared myself on, losing that job, settling in, right? I mean, and sometimes I sit down and I'm like, I think there's a way I thought life would end up, and it didn't, right? Now I'm at a better place, but it's taken a while. But those, even when I used to be married, when I was married the first few months or years, I remember it used to be, I did not like what I was doing. I'm like, no, this is not what I'm called to do. I'm one of those who believe in even your work. At this point in my life, I have enough years of experience to now look for values aligned work. I know when we're starting out, it can be anything, but now I'm very big on whatever I do has to be aligned with my values and me creating an impact, whatever that looks like, right? So for me, I think there was such a disconnect, those first few years, because now when I moved on from that company, and I was working in an insurance brokerage firm, but now I'd become a general manager, and I was just doing ops. I had moved now from accounting to analysis. I was actually doing ops.
General ops, yeah.
Yes, general manager, ops, and finance, right? But there was such a disconnect, right? With it, and I'm like, why am I not doing what I'm called? Like, I could just tell this is not it, from so many things, from not being happy with just, I don't know, when you know there's something, I don't know how else to put it, right? So those first few years of marriage were not easy, because my husband had a wife who'd come home every day sulking, I want to quit. I kid you not, I think he had that every day for a good maybe 2 years, right? I want to quit, I want to, I don't know what's next, but this is not it. I want to go back to Australia.
You have seen something different, that your heart yearns for more. So it was not, I think he just stuck through it, and I thank God he did, right? But those were the conversations we were having earlier on in marriage, and it wasn't easy. How long did you take in the insurance brokerage firm?
2 years.
Okay.
2 years. So I did, so when I came to Kenya, I did 1 year. Now at the company that I told you I was laid off. Then I did the insurance brokerage for 2 years. And then now I joined where I currently work in 2015 March. In fact, I'm just celebrating 7 years. LinkedIn was reminding me, congratulations.
7 years
7 years into this.
As we move into that, had you at that time children had come?
Yes. So the kids came in 2017. My firstborn was born. No. They hadn't, because I joined B Lab 2017. 2017 March, and my firstborn son was born in October of 2017.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
he
hadn't
was-
come in, but
He was on the journey.
he was on the journey.
He was cooking in the pot, yeah?
He was cooking in the pot, yes.
Right. And how now someone explained, I'm trying a lot in my life to understand just the power that is a woman. I think it's an incredible thing. Just yesterday I was surrounded by my mother, who is the woman I grew up fearing and loving, and my
Like all
sister
of us.
and my wife, who then I feared for a really long time, until my daughter came, and she's the girl I fear the most, because I'm like, yo. So, but just being around them, all four of them, and thinking there is a deep blood connection with all of this was something very deep for me. But I keep also just trying to understand woman and what that looks like. As I saw all four of them, and earlier in the day, my daughter and I were looking at pictures that are in my office, and there's a picture of my mom as a girl. She's really, really just a girl, and various others. And a reflection I was having is that, just like with man, but mostly I guess with women, and I'm asking this from a curious perspective, you change a lot. You change from a girl who the father, the mother is, you know, like everything for you. Then you become this lady that is experiencing life, experiencing love, experiencing adventure, trying to find career path. Then as you're defining that, and maybe a man meets you, the man meets this girl who is this lady that is experiencing all of this. And in your case, a lady who is experiencing some sense of loss or inertia from, you know, what Australia and the good life that has been, but also coming from a background where there was not a good, fortunate background, a background of sort of like privilege. So the man comes and experiences this girl that is a result of all of that. But soon after, the conversation you have with him at the beginning is, what do you want in a woman? I mean, in a wife. But you haven't been a wife before. So you're literally changing even the things he says he's looking for. You probably have seen your mom or others, but you're changing and you're becoming this, you're leaving just being a lady into being a wife. And that comes with things. You are also creating your career and experiencing, you know, something different from accounting now into general. And now, with all of that, there is also the added, you're becoming a mother. I keep trying to just understand that evolution of woman. And I'm like, yo, every one of those things is very distinct. And in this case, in just 2 years, you've moved from single to shifts in job, to mother, rather to wife, and to a job, and to mother, and then to a new job. How is Lucy experiencing all of this journey?